Hello everyone, my name is Jen and welcome to the Book Refuge and welcome to my most highly anticipated video of the year, both for myself and for most of you because I know you've already been asking for it. It's my favorite books of the year. It's my top 10 favorite books of the year. I was very overwhelmed when I took on the process to figure out which my favorite book of the year was. I knew in my gut I had a good feeling about which couple books it might be, just based on, feelings that I had. But just in case you haven't been watching my vlogs in December or the Romance Takeover readathon vlogs, because I know not everyone maybe knew what that was or what was going on. But what I decided to do the month of December is I went through all of my books of the year, which at the beginning of this year was, at the beginning of December was about 630 books. And I pulled out all of the 5 stars that I gave, which was a total of 215 books that I'd given 5 stars to. And then I went through those 5 stars and I decided whether or not they would be a 6th star for me, which there is a video that I have, maybe it already came out, about how I'm going to rate books next year. And that there will be something called a 6th star, which will be reserved for books that are my favorites of the year, so that it makes this process a little bit easier next year. But for this year, what I did is I picked out those books, and that list came to about 20 books that I felt like were new favorites of mine. And then I reread about 15 of those 20 books in the month of between November and December, because I actually did reread a couple of these, and then some of them I just didn't need to reread because I knew where they fit. And then I rated those books based on 5 categories. I did it based on hero, heroine, or sometimes 2 heroes, because I did have a couple of gay romances on there too. But hero, so basically rated them on the protagonist, the plot, the resolution of the plot, and then how great the sex was, because the sex is pretty important to me in my romances. And that did also kind of kick a couple books. There's a couple books on my favorite list that weren't romances, and they just don't hold up to the ones that are romances. So even though they were favorite books, they just didn't quite make it. So with all of that out of the way, we're going to start at number 10 and go up to number 1. I really want you to go on this journey with me. Some of you who are cross over to my Instagram, you might know what the favorite book is, but I'm just gonna gush. This is probably gonna be a really long video. These are all books that I have recommended in multiple videos and at multiple times, but now I'm just really gonna gush on them. I'm mostly gonna keep it spoiler free, but I really want to gush, so just be warned. There also won't be a list down below because I want you to watch it with me. Of course people can skip, but I want this to be an experience. So, okay, enough of all that on the front. Let us get started with my number 10. My number 10 favorite book of the year was Twisted Pride by Cora Riley. You are mine now, Angel. I own you. Even if I ever let you go, I'll still own you. You'll always remember this day, and deep down you will always know that you are mine and mine alone. That is a quote by Ramo after him and Serafina have sex for the first time. This book is many, many books into a series by Cora Riley. It's actually only book 3 in the Kimura Chronicles, but personally, I believe that all of her books kind of fit as an overarching series. So that being said, there's 6 books in the Bound by Blood Chronicles, or the Bound by Blood series, and then this is book 3 in the Kimura Chronicles. To me, this book wouldn't hold the place that it holds in my list if I hadn't have went on that journey with the characters, because as you will see by this list, I have kind of a thing for the villain turned the hero, or the villain turned the anti-hero, and to me, Ramo is someone who stands out more than any other as that being his thing. I wouldn't even say he even becomes an anti-hero because it all depends on your point of view. But we have Serafina, who is captured by Raymond Falcone to get back at the outfit, who she is about to marry. The weather was absolutely perfect for this. And then I start filming and it fucks with us. But that's just how it goes. So anyway, they kidnap Ramo and his brothers kidnap her on her wedding day. This wedding is supposed to secure a deal between two other mafia families, and Ramo decides to stick his nose into it and ruin everything. And he takes Serafina back with him. Now, the game that is being played by him is different than what her family thinks. He's definitely putting on a show and maybe making himself appear, quote unquote, worse than he really is. But the thing that just makes this work for me, granted, remember, I rated these on 5 things, and Serafina for being naive in some ways, because there's something about when you are a mafia woman, you are really kept kind of protected and cosseted and to be used as, you know, bargaining chips and things like that. And so Serafina has been kept very sheltered. But when she is faced with Ramo and she is fighting for her life, something comes out in her that she didn't even know she possessed, because she's always presented herself as pretty meek and biddable to her family. And when she's faced with Ramo, her hackles rise, her pride comes out, and she's willing to fight for her life. And the romance that comes of this and the places that they go with it was just so powerful to me. Something that's going to come up again and again. I picked a quote or two from each of these books to kind of represent how I feel about it. And when I pulled up the quote for this one, I was immediately sucked back into that part of the book. Getting quotes for these books took me way too long because I wanted to read the passages that I was coming across. And I was like, no, you have a focus, Jen, keep going. But this definitely deserved a place on my top list. I know it's hard to maybe jump right to this book because I don't think you'll get what you want to get out of it if you start with this book. I feel like it wouldn't be a favorite book for you the way it is for me. But even just starting with the Kimura Chronicles, you get to see how vicious and crazy Ramo is before you get to this book. But mafia books were really kind of a new thing from this year, and Cora Riley, she messes up royally sometimes, but she also gets it right better than anyone, in my opinion. All right, then we have number 9, and I think this is going to shock some people that it's this low, but we have places to go. Number 9 is Sea of Ruin by Pam Godwin. It's madness, Bennett. Ruin. You know as well as I do that this affinity, you and me, is frightening, magnificently, hopelessly real. This book is a book that I have fought for and recommended and gone to bat for this book so many times this year. I have convinced a lot of people to read it. It's been mostly successful because in general, I recommend this book to a lot of people. It is a dark, historical pirate romance. It has multiple love interests in it. I talk about this in a plot twist video that I put out about some of the reasons why I thought it was so unique. It also has the beautiful covers is at self-publishing. Where you're going to find the prettiest covers is in self-publishing. They're just fantastic. Pam Godwin was an author that I had read before. Previous year, one of my favorite books was Dark Notes by her, which was a student-teacher taboo romance that just blew my mind. And this one did it in a different way. This one also has a very fierce protagonist. Her name is Bennett Sharp. That quote that I shared earlier is from Ashley Cutler, who's actually a pirate hunter, who gets Bennett in his clutches, and they're playing a very dangerous game together. She is trying to get him to sleep with her, fall in love with her, and not turn her in to be hanged. And he knows what game she's playing, and he is not going to let her play it the way she wants to play it, but he still can't help being inexplicably drawn to her, as that quote suggests. There's a lot of dark elements to this book. Guys, over half of the books I'm recommending are dark. You'll have to check out the trigger warnings for them yourself, because this is about the gush for me. And this book has many controversial scenes, and in conversation with them, I am able to back up every single choice the author makes, because I believe that if you are not seeing the full picture of what she's doing, there is a certain act that happens, an act that is perpetrated by one of our love interests, but it is the opening of a parenthesis. And if you were to throw this book down and say it's worthless and oh my gosh, I just hate that he does this and I can never forgive him. You are missing the other end of the parenthesis. You are missing what is really happening with this character and why he reacted that way and what's going on. And to me, that is where the character growth and the character depth and the beauty of the relationships portrayed in this book come from. And so to shy away from that and, you know, then this book just isn't for you. Like, that is always a valid reason. But if the reason it's not for you is solely because of that one act, I think you are taking away a lot of Bennett's agency and a lot of her smarts, because she in no way accepts what is done to her. And there is an immediate repercussion for what happens. And she comes out the victor in double the ways, is what I'll say. This book gives me so many feelings. It makes me ache. It made me weep. All of these books made me weep, so there's not much about that. But it just gives me such a fierce longing when I read this book. And the people who've really got it, the people who've really loved it along with me, they understand what I'm saying. And I hope that you would give this book a try if you love dark romance, or you like historical romance, or you really want a book that has a bit of a fantasy going to it and you don't mind darker content. There's a reason why I will stake my reputation on this book, because it's fantastic. I lied. Number 8, The Secret by Julie Garwood. This was very hard to decide which Julie Garwood to put on here, and I actually went back and forth right till the last minute. There are kind of two schools of thought with Julie Garwood too. There's the people who start with The Bride and the people who start with The Secret. And I did start with The Bride, but The Secret is currently my favorite. I've only read 2 of her books, I know, but it was enough to get this book on my favorites list because it's just so powerful. Judith and Ian have such a beautiful relationship together. And I forgot to read their quote, so I'll do it right now. Your past isn't important. Let it go, Judith. You're going to belong to me. I'm going to be your family, and I'll take care of you. I love Scottish men. Sorry I couldn't do a beautiful Scottish accent for that, but it's just not going to happen. This book has some of the best female friendship I've ever seen in a historical. It has some very forward-thinking women without it feeling like it is over-dramatized or beating you over the head. It's just beautiful. This story is about a Scottish girl and an English girl who become friends when they really shouldn't. And when it comes time for the Scottish girl to have her first children, she really wants her best friend to be there. And so this girl's brother-in-law goes with some of his crew to pick her up. And they fully expect this English chit to let them down and to betray their friend. And it's just beautiful to see her surprise them again and again. And really take this Scottish village by storm. I love how obsessed the hero is with her. I love how much the whole group of people just rally around her. It isn't perfect, and there is a secret, and the secret really could ruin everything for them. But it's just so beautiful. I don't know how else to say it. Like, it's such a simple, sweet story compared to a lot of the others on my list. Like, a lot of these books have a lot of angst and craziness going on, and The Secret just doesn't. It was such a pleasant read. I binged this whole book. This was one of my book club reads with you guys. I binged this whole book on the way home from Montana, and it just gave me so much peace, and I was so excited to flip each page, but I also just had a wonderful time sitting with the characters and waiting for them to figure it all out, and watching Judith wreak havoc in such a beautiful way, and Ian just wants to scoop her up and love her and make her his, and it's so beautiful how he does it. Number 7 is Lothar by Kresley Cole. Little mortal, you've changed everything. Imagine I said that in a really sexy Robert Pekov Russian accent. But we have Lothar, the enemy of old. This is book 11 in the Immortals After Dark, so there's a bit of work to get to this book. You cannot just jump into Lothar. It would be a foolish decision. I'm not saying you wouldn't still love it if you like toxic men and vampires and really feisty southern women, but it's a lot. Like, it's a lot. This book, I was dying to read it. I couldn't wait to get there. I did binge this entire series in 2 weeks, so one of her books had to make it on this list because I feel like my reading journey of 2020 is split between before Cressley Cole and after Cressley Cole, and I was never the same afterwards. This book, it's very hard to even describe it because, again, you need to read everything, but Lothar is like one of the OG vampires. He's not the oldest there is, but he's one of the oldest that we're dealing with. He's been around a very long time, and he feels that he is owed his fated mate. And he is very convinced that his fated mate is this goddess of the death or something like that. And she likes to possess people's bodies. Like, she cannot like she was cursed to like not have her own body, but to possess other bodies. And she's also a virgin goddess, and that doesn't sit too well with Lothar. So he catches her when she is possessing the body of Elizabeth, who is this sweet southern girl, a bit of a hick, just a little bit, and he is sure that the fates would not have given him such a weak, pathetic human as his mate, so it must be this goddess possessing her. And he does horrible things to Elizabeth to try and get to who he believes is his fated mate. It is atrocious. It's horrible. But Elizabeth knows that her best way is to make him obsessed with her and to make him willing to save her over this other being inside of her body. And she's willing to do whatever it takes. Nothing is too much. No sin is too great. No sexual experience is too much for her. She will do what she has to win over the enemy of old. But the thing is, the guy has a blackened, withered heart. And maybe he doesn't know how to love. Maybe he only knows how to possess things. And this is a wild ride. And like I said, it takes a while to get to this point. But Lothar, this book is infamous and famous for a reason. And of the series, this is the one I've already reread 3 times. I have only reread one other book in this series so far, but this one I've read 3 times, and I put it on, just clips of it. I have the audiobook, and I listen to just clips of it sometimes because I am obsessed. Number 6. Oh boy, you knew he had to be on here. We have Untouchable by Sam Mariano. Carter is perhaps the most dangerous predator around because he can attract prey so easily. How many girls might be uncomfortable with what he wants to do sexually, but keep their mouths shut because he's Carter Mahoney. Untouchable. So this is another book that I've kind of taken a claim by, but I'm a little less pushy towards people because this has, I mean, this dude, for his, it's so hard to even say because I can't even defend it, but there's just so much about him that ticks boxes for me. He is a bad person. He is a bit of a sociopath, psychopath, whichever one it is. Our first scene with him in the book is him assaulting our heroine. He face fucks her, is what happens. As an option of 2 things, he's like, I can either rape you or face fuck you. What do you want? Don't ask me how this is my favorite. No, I'll tell you. It's my favorite because of the heroine, and this happens often. I have seen heroes like him before, not generally, and this is a high school dark romance. They say a bully romance in some places too. It says a bully romance, it says a dark romance. To me, it fits more as a dark because yes, there is the bullying part of it, but this is much more than that. Like, our main character, she's dealing with much more than him just being kind of a bully to her. Like, he becomes obsessed with her. He winds his way into her life. He has the entire town, like, kind of blindsided by him because of his wealth and power. And for a high schooler, he can do pretty much anything that he wants. But there's something about Zoe who, when her back's against the wall, she chooses to try to understand him. And she chooses to see if she can be turned on by what he's doing to her. and she chooses to try to make the best of a situation. And in doing so, in approaching this man in a manner different than he's seen before, by either not bowing to his will completely or not just like throwing a fit and fighting him, she actually tries to understand him and say, are you doing this because you want to hurt someone? Are you doing it because you like control? Or is it me specifically? And it turns out that it's a combination of the two. He doesn't want to hurt her, but he can still hurt her and have a good time. So it's really up to her if she wants to enjoy this or not. So I know that's confusing. I get it. This book isn't for everybody. But my friends who have read it have been obsessed. But they're also friends who knew what they were getting into. You'll notice the theme in these books so far, besides The Secret, that I really have a thing for the fucked up guys. And we still have one of those to go. Most of the rest are sweet. But these just made it on my list because I was dumbstruck by this book. Because this is one of my best friend's favorite books. And she'd been recommending it to me for always. And I had read some bully romances and wasn't interested. And I also wasn't in the mood for high school romances. So it was just a bad combination. And to be fair, she didn't sell it to me quite right. Like, the elements about this that I like aren't the bully romance or the high school part. They are the psychopath elements of him. So, this is my number 6. All right, we're entering the top 5. And my number 5 favorite, I feel a bit bad because none of you can read this book until March. And I didn't want to be this person. I didn't want to be this person who put a book that isn't out yet as their 2020 favorite. And I personally agree that it should have been different. But here's my reason. I knew that I wanted a book by this author on my list. Okay? And for me, I read this book like 3 weeks ago. And so it is a 2020 read for me. And I don't want to put it in 2021 because I haven't read it in that month. And I know that as a reread, it like won't hit me the same because there's some surprises. So anyway, whatever. This is my list. If you don't like it, you can find somebody else. It's fine. But my number 5 is Devil in Her Bed by Kerrigan Byrne. You'll never find a more honest and honorable soul than Francesca. She's stubborn, argumentative, crass, bossy, and a pain in my arse most days. But damned if she wouldn't rip her own heart out and hand it to those who she cares for if they ask her for it. That is a quote by Ramsey, who's actually the hero of book 2, talking to our hero in this book, which the reason I picked a quote from Ramsey is that this book, again, it's my own fault for picking one that isn't out yet. I can't talk about it, but it's on my list, and it's my favorite Kerrigan Byrne that I've read to date. And so when I was picking one of her books, all the Kerrigan Byrne books I have read them this year. This one is my favorite, and so I had to put it there. And what can I do? This is the wrap-up of the Devil You Know series about the Red Rogues, who are 3 friends who meet each other at school and form this society. And they all have very tragic pasts. And Francesca's, we've heard bits and pieces of it through the other 2 books. And then we come to this one, and in Kerrigan Byrne fashion, she gives us a prologue that explains everything that has happened to this point. And it's pretty crazy. And the places we get to see it go from here, and the fierceness that this woman has, and the strength that she has, and the things that she's willing to do for revenge. I don't know too many heroines I've read who are quite like it. Well, that's not true. There's one that we'll get to on this list. A heroine who's fighting for her revenge. But Kerrigan Byrne, I could not put this down. I read this book on Thanksgiving, and I could not put it down. And I'm sorry you can't read it until March, but I'm not sorry I put it on this list because I kept trying to pick one of the other Kerrigan Byrnes to put on it, and I just couldn't. I had to have it on this list. So there you go. Number 4, Again the Magic by Lisa Kleypas. For thousands of nights, I dreamed of making love to you. No man on earth has ever hated sunrise as much as I do. That is a quote from McKenna, who is a fantastic hero. He has so much righteous anger in him. Recently I put up my reading vlog, the last reading vlog for the Romance Takeover Readathon, where I cry for 10 minutes about McKenna and the agony that these two have been put through because of her father. So 12 years ago, Aline was in love with a stable boy at her family estate, and his name was John McKenna. And Aline is the oldest daughter of, I think it's an earl. They are in love. She wants to give her virginity to him. She wants to run away and just be his little wife in a cabin, and he'll work every day and she'll take care of the house. And that's ripped away when her younger sister unknowingly shares what she sees in the carriage house, which she sees them making out in the carriage house. And her father threatens the life of McKenna and urges her to chase him off, or he will make sure that McKenna pays. So she breaks McKenna's heart, gets him to leave. He eventually ends up in America, becomes wealthy, and makes his way back to the Westcliff estate so that he can take revenge on his sweetheart of old. He plans to do this by seducing her and ruining her and then leaving town. But it becomes very clear to us that McKenna is the one in danger of losing his heart all over again, and not Aline. Although Aline is definitely going to lose her heart as well, because not only now, even though her father is dead and it may seem like impediments are removed, Aline is now a scarred heroine in a couple real ways. Some of them mental and some of them physical, after an accident that she went through a few years after McKenna left. And she just can't believe that he would love her with those scars. And it's tragic and so sad how she rejects him again and again when all this man wants to do is love her. He's even willing to marry her when he thinks she doesn't love him, because he just wants her so badly. And that quote that I read at the beginning is followed up by a quote where after they do make love and they're laying together, he tells Aline to go to sleep. And she's like, you need to sleep too. You must be exhausted. And he's like, reality is finally much better than anything I could find in a dream. So I'll watch over you while you sleep. This also has one of the best secondary love stories I've ever read, and is very personal to me. I've talked about this in many videos when I recommend Again the Magic. It has an alcoholic man who wants a woman so bad, but she says, she's like, I've seen what alcoholism does to people, and I won't love you and watch you destroy yourself. So you need to choose, but you need to choose without me. And that's a very brave thing done by both of them. And that is a very personal story to me as well. I am the daughter of an alcoholic. I mean, they always say they're an alcoholics, but he is a 5-year sober alcoholic. And that decision had to be made for himself. It couldn't be made for my mother or for myself. He had to make it for himself. And so to feel so seen by this book, to feel that someone can love someone so much, and that particular choice, when you are addicted to something, it has to be for your own well-being, because you can never sustain it if you're doing it for someone else. And so that book just means so much to me. And I'm proud I made it through without crying for that one. We're getting closer to tears with each book that we go, because when I was picking the quotes, for a couple of these books, and I was in tears. So there we go. We've made it to book number 3, and so I'll tell you this. These top 3, these books were listed on my Instagram where they ranked. And this was almost impossible to do. Like, I'm not even kidding you. Because these top 3 books are in completely different genres and hero types and everything from each other. They're completely different. So it was very hard to, I couldn't compare them against each other to decide which one's the best. But I feel pretty confident, just for enjoyment level and what the books mean to me, this is where they land. So book number 3 is The Madness of Lord Ian Mackenzie. My Beth, thank you. For what? She said. For setting me free. Ian Mackenzie is one of the swooniest heroes that I've ever read. This book really kind of took everything by storm. Booktube, book Twitter, book Instagram. It took us all by storm. This is the first book in, it's called the Mackenzie McBride series, but it used to be called the Highland Pleasure series. The first 4 books are about the Mackenzies, a group of 4 brothers who had a very abusive, controlling father. And this first book is actually about the youngest brother, Ian, who witnessed something he shouldn't. He also is definitely on the neuroatypical scale. It's, we think that he maybe has like autism of some kind, but definitely neuroatypical, and definitely not something that is understood during the time period for which he lived. So his father kind of just willfully ignored Ian up to a certain point, but then Ian witnessed something he shouldn't, and to make sure he stayed quiet, his father had Ian declared insane and put in a mental asylum. And he was there for many years. He was forced through so many horrible, horrible things. And eventually, when his father died, his oldest brother, Hart Mackenzie, when he became the Duke, he released his brother into his custody, and he helped his brother get a job and get back on his feet, and things were good. Ian has a love of Ming bowls. He likes to find perfect Ming pottery, and he has an acquaintance who sells him some of these, who is going to be marrying a woman named Beth. I can't remember her last name. But she is a wealthy widow who's going to be marrying this man just to have a companion, basically. And Ian knows some information about this guy, that he has many mistresses. And so he decides to go and meet Beth. And if he likes her, he'll tell her, if she's a good person, he'll tell her about this guy's depravity, and if not, he'll just be on his way. And the moment that Beth meets Ian, that Ian meets Beth, it's like the sun comes out in a cloudy day. It's like the stars and moon come out on a moonless night, and his world shifts. And Beth finds him very attractive. She doesn't mind his oddities, as they're called. But she doesn't need to have a husband. And after almost getting burned by this guy she was going to marry, she tells Ian that, well, we could be lovers if you would like, but I don't want to get married. And Ian goes about making what he wants to come true, but not in the same domineering fashion that some of my other heroes might do. He maybe in being a little manipulative, but also in making it known that I'm the best option for you, and though I can't love you, because he doesn't believe that he knows what love is, which is also something I love in heroes, whether they have neuroatypical things or not. I love when a hero thinks that they can't love someone. They discover they're perfect for each other, and this entire series I really have loved. I've read the 4 brothers, and then there's one about a nephew, and then even some of the McBride books were good. But Lord Ian Mackenzie will stick out as one of my favorite characters, as well as some of my favorite situations that it's fantastic. All right, and book number 2, my second favorite read of the year, is A Heart of Blood and Ashes by Millavane. You shaved your beard, because no longer will you need to tug on it when you want me to listen. Always I will listen to you. Always I will hear your words. This book, guys, I have spoken at it at length. I have a full review for this book earlier on in my repertoire. It is a book I'm very proud of. I have lots and lots of feelings about this couple. They mean so much to me. I have had the joy of having other friends read this book from my recommendation, and it is something that I am pretty proud of. Like, I don't always say like, oh, I'm proud people read a book of mine, but this is one that when I can convince someone to read it, and to finish it, and to love it, I feel that it is a success, because this book is hard. This is a hard book to get into. This is a hard book to get to the place where you see what it's doing. But I read this book this summer, and then I had an arc for the sequel, which was also fantastic. The things being done in this book, the female character in this book, our lead, Yvonne, she's my favorite heroine of all time to this date. To this point in my life, she's my favorite heroine of all time. I love her. Her strength is fantastic. The things she's lived through, her entire life has been pain and agony, and the hope she has when she meets Maddox, to have it dashed so painfully. All right, what is this book about? I don't know if you don't know at this point. How you don't know. But this book is set in a barbarian fantasy time, as in like there's dragons and weird dinosaur creatures and magic saber-toothed tigers and all these crazy things. And it is ruled a lot by the specific area we are in is ruled by this council that kind of oversees the different kingdoms. And then there are kings and queens that rule over those. And Maddox is the son of a king and queen in one area. And while he is out raiding, while he is out doing his barbarian life, he finds out that his mother and father, he finds out he's been summoned by the council. And then the council tells him that his mother and father have been murdered because they were summoned by a nearby kingdom. And then his father supposedly committed rape while he was there. And then the mother tried to avenge the father and she was killed too. And Maddox is like, there's no way in hell that my parents went to a place they were summoned and then murdered people there. Or my father would never have tried to rape someone. Like, that is ridiculous. But he can't seek revenge because there is an evil coming. And they need the council and the support of all the neighboring areas if they will defeat this evil when it comes. And so he cannot seek retribution and, like, ruin that peace. But there becomes word that this kingdom that killed his parents, they have a secret princess. And this princess, or would-be queen, because actually in that world, the queen is the matriarch. So he goes to capture her, and it turns out that this was a setup. She wanted to be captured because she has lived a horrible life under her father's thumb. Her father has made her life a misery and treated her like garbage and abused her and hurt her in all these ways. But she has a core of steel. And when she gets herself into Maddox's clutches, she is willing to do anything, to debase herself, to humiliate herself, to tell him anything he wants to hear, do anything he wants her to do, so that he will be her ally and that they can take down her father together. And the depths that she's willing to go to prove her loyalty are just mind-blowing. And the thing with this book, there's so many clever things. I have spoken hours upon hours of this book collectively through my videos and speaking with my best friends that I've been able to convince to read this book. Because you should hate the hero for the things that he does to her. And you do a little bit. But it's like Sarah from Fated Mate said it best. Sarah McLean said, the hero will say something or do something that you think that's it. That's the step too far. That is the words too much. I'm done with you. And then the next page, the next sentence, the author is able to reset you and make you remember who Maddox is and like why he would be acting that way. And that he sees this woman as an enemy who possibly murdered his family. And so she's able to keep you right on the knife's edge. And once you think it's too far, when it's past the point of no return, I was just as deeply in love with Maddox as I was with Yvonne. But if I haven't convinced you to read this book yet, I don't know what I can do. It's fantastic. You do need to love high fantasy or be willing to sit through fantasy explanations. You do need to not mind some pretty rough sexual situations and the death of animals. So there's some caveats for this. But if you are wondering why fantasy romance should be a thing, it's this book. Because this book does not work without the fantasy element or without the romance element. They are both 100% vital to this story being successful. You take away one part of it and it falls. And to me, that's what a fantasy romance is. It's not just a fantasy that you put in some kissy faces. The relationship between these two and the way it's going to work out, it will be the success or failure of the universe. And to me, that is a fantastically written book that it couldn't have been told any other way. And Milivane is brilliant. All right, and without further ado, because y'all know that this book is on here, I blurted it out in one of my earlier videos because I was just so excited about it, and we'll see if I can keep the gush under 10 minutes. But we have The Takeover by T.L. Swan. I love you, and I love the boys, and you are saving me, not the other way around. Claire, I love you more than anything. This is where I want to be. Tristan fucking Miles, everyone. Here you go. You're welcome. Read this goddamn book, okay? I said that very strongly. I mean it very strongly. This is my favorite book of the year, and I don't know how that happened, okay? I love T.L. Swan. I have read almost all of her books up to that point. So when there was an arc available for The Takeover, I was like, cool, let's do it. I had binged all of her books before. I've read everything she's written, save one, because I'm saving it. I do that sometimes. I didn't even remember that I read The Stopover, which is the first book in the Miles High Club. The Miles High Club. It's a series about 4 brothers. Only the first 2 books are out. This book is a older woman book. This is an enemies to lovers. This is a widower with 3 kids, a second chance romance. This is a billionaire romance. It is so many things wrapped up into one. But at the heart of it, is this beautiful man, Tristan Miles. And I'll tell you guys, this is the one. I was pulling out quotes for this. And I would read you the whole book if I could. Although, go get the audiobook. There's a wonderful audiobook out with CJ Bloom and I can't remember the guy's name, but you could listen to it if you want. This book is hilarious. This book is heartwarming. This book will rip your heart out. I have done great in-depth reviews of this book as well. I recommend it whenever I can. There are a few people who just thought it was a bit too much. It is a bit farcical. It is a bit of a fantasy, okay? But a lot of romances are a bit of a fantasy, whether they are a fantasy romance or not. But this starts with a woman who her business is failing. Her husband has died 5 years ago, and she's barely holding on. And she gets offered a buyout by the Miles advertising, and she refuses because she's like, fuck you, and trying to buy out my family business. I will keep this running until my sons are old enough to run it. She has a 18-year-old, a 13-year-old, and a 9-year-old sons. I think that's what they are, or 7, not sure. She was madly in love with her husband. They were high school sweethearts, had an accidental pregnancy with the first one because she's only 38, but it didn't matter because they were going to be together anyway, and it just kind of accelerated their time. They're that couple, like, you would have read them in like a college romance and thought they were adorable, and then he was killed by a drunk driver, and she hasn't even thought about moving on. And then she meets Tristan, and he's super attracted to her right away, and just thinks she's pretty hot, and she's just like, nope, I think you're a dick. Well, they meet each other in France at a business convention that she goes to, which he happens to be teaching some what are they called? Some sessions at. And they end up having a one-night stand, which leads into a weekend fling in Paris, which leads to, when they come back to their real lives, he wants to date her. Like, he's like, this is my girl. And she's like, Tristan, I have 3 kids, and there are 3 hearts attached to mine. Like, I am a 4-heart package. And number 1, you don't want a ready-made family. Like, you're young. You're only 34. You're not ready for this. And he's like, woman, don't tell me what I'm ready for. And then he shows up at her house as a surprise, and the kids are all there, and they attack him. And he's like, I'm not fucking ready for this. And he runs. And it's fantastic because then the oldest son, who had tried to beat him up the night before, comes into his office the next day as a possible intern at his company. And Tristan decides to give this kid a chance because he sees a lot of potential, even though the kid's got a chip on his shoulder and he's being kind of a dick. He's like, I'm going to give you a shot. Don't make me regret it. And so Tristan's back in their lives again. And he has to convince Claire and woo her and win her by winning her sons over. And it is the most romantic and beautiful story. It's so great. And I get, like, we did this as a buddy read too, you know, for my group when we were rereading my favorites. And I understand the critique. Some people think that he has it a little too easy. He integrates into their life too much. Claire kind of lets him too close to her children too quickly, yada, yada, yada. I see your issues, but to me, this is a fantasy. This is a fantasy for a widow who never thought she could have love again. And the conflict in this story, it's hard. It's hard because this woman is afraid of her sons having a different father when they had a great father. This wasn't a divorce. This wasn't a, you know, suicide or a, you know, he was a shitty dad. Like, this was a good man. She had good sex with him. He was a great father. And Tristan has the potential to be all those things too. And she doesn't know if, number one, if she gets a second happily ever after. And two, is she betraying her husband by letting this man love her sons? And both Tristan and her sons have something to say about that. And, well, everyone is welcome to whatever their opinions are. This is my top 10 list, and The Takeover was my favorite book of 2020, and I regret nothing. Thank you so much for sticking with me for this video. I hope you agreed with a lot of these. I hope you'll try some of these. I hope that by putting these books on my favorite list, it's finally enough to push you over the edge. I understand some of them have quite the trigger warnings, and I can understand that. But some of them are just some of the most heartwarming stories I've ever read, because I believe you cannot have great joy without great sadness or great pain. I mean, you cannot understand those things in life without its counterbalance. So thank you so much for watching this video. What a great year it's been. There's still more to come, of course. This isn't quite the end of the year, but this was so much fun, and I really look forward to seeing what 21 brings to me. That's what's crazy, is however passionately I feel about these books, 2021 has a chance to top it, and I just can't wait. So thank you so much for watching this. I put up new videos multiple times a week. Make sure you check out channel memberships if you'd like to spend more time with me. The Romance Booktuber Discord is also down below if you'd like to chat romance more often. Thanks so much for watching, and have a great day. Bye.